Drizzle on the window, coffee in my hand. Morning starts so slowly in our sleepy land.
Come work on a pattern book with me. Welcome to Once Upon a Stitch Nook, and this is the quiet corner of the internet where I try to craft a quiet, cozy space for us to do cozy things. In light of my summer's efforts to make several pattern collections, all under the umbrella name/aesthetic of cottage. Examples are my first one was cottage rose, then we had cottage lavender, cottage sunflower, cottage mushroom, cottage apple. You get the idea. And so I have these collections of about 4 to 6 patterns each. And while I do sell them as also individual patterns and bundles as far as those collections, all under, the Cottage Rose collection has all the patterns related to it. I thought I want to compile these collections since they all hold that cottagecore aesthetic. I want to compile them into an ebook or even a physical book. I ran it by my audience and received the green light, and at any rate, it seems only natural to group them together. So today I will be working on editing and working on patterns, working up patterns that are still to be fully written and fully tested. I'm going to be responding to some pattern testers. Then I'll go into some other areas of the book that I am going to be working on to flesh it out. So now I do have experience and a fair bit of knowledge in the indie publishing sphere, mainly because I am a picture book illustrator. So I've worked with indie authors and often walked them through the steps to publish their first picture book. I knew kind of steps, I knew the options they had. So often when they're doing their first book, they really don't have much knowledge of what's possible or what they need to do or what they should be providing me. So since I had the knowledge, I was kind of walking them through that early on. So that being said, I need to decide which avenue and publisher I want to go through for this book. The Amazon KDP is the simplest option. It's the go-to a lot of my authors go to because it is simple, it is cheap, and I'm very familiar with formatting for it, so that would be a simple option. But I do want to do a little more thorough research. Reason being is Amazon KDP just hosts it on Amazon, which of course is great, and of course I will want it on there at some point. But I would like also the option to sell it via my own website page or directly with my audience, or offer, bonuses or collect emails and build my email list through it. So at least I think initially I would like to launch it that way and then add on the KDP, sell it on Amazon option, at least with the ebook. And so, yeah, that's something I need to really look into and I will need to research further. So question came to how to group the collections. My immediate thought was seasonal, as that's what I focused on when releasing them. I didn't want a pumpkin pattern in summer or spring, that didn't quite make sense. However, as far as there you see my cottage apple piece I'm working on. I'm really excited about that, and that will be a fall piece. So that's where the seasonal idea kind of sprung from. But the problem with that is when I make more collections under the cottage theme that fit into a season that's already been published, say spring and then even summer get published, I can't do any more, flower based ones. Or if I do, they won't have a place to go to in fall and winter. That would be out of place. I could do a little bit with that because I was going to do like a winter rose. So despite that it was a flower, I was going to place it into a winter category, but I'm not sure. People said they thought it should be in spring. But that being said, it would just kind of ostracize those collections. Now, what I can do is, of course, add those collections to the book later at a later time, but I don't want someone who has bought the book before to then not have access to those patterns, you know. So what I needed to decide on was I needed a different categorization. And the going names right now, which are subject to change, are Cottage Garden, Cottage Woods, and Cottage Meadow. And you see with Cottage Garden and Cottage Meadow, I could, you know, flower-esque ones could go in either or. So Cottage Garden will be the first one. And then later when I do Cottage Meadow, I can do things that would still likely fall under Cottage Garden. I'm thinking like bees, maybe ladybugs, some other flowers, things like that. So I've more or less moved on from the when I've more or less moved on from the cottage series, then these books can be compiled into bigger book collections, like a mega collection of, and it would be categorized as having said collections like the Cottage Garden, Cottage Meadow, whatever else would be under, say, Spring Collection, the book. So this would only be if I have enough collections, enough books to all fall under the season, and if there is any hype or people want that. So that's just a potential thing. Now you see me here sketching, and that is because now that I have an idea for the names, the next step is to consider the interior, the pages, and what I would include. I could simply compile the patterns and call it a day, but I always have to make more work for myself. Maybe it's because I'm a book illustrator or a storyteller, but I feel the obligation to add extra value to the book, especially for anyone who has already bought a pattern or two from me, from my Etsy or from my Ravelry. I want to add extra value. I want there to be something a little special when you get the book collection, because I do think it's a bit simpler to simply get, and I don't know if it's just me, I don't buy pattern books, but I think a lot of people just buy off Etsy and Ravelry for their patterns. So I want a little more, especially for my audience that I've built that are encouraging me, like what I do, I want to give them back something. So I want to illustrate some pictures, giving the cottage series a sort of cottagecore storybook feel, depicting the creations and adding a little story or lore to the collections themselves. I want to keep the story aspect simple and not complicate it much, mainly to give what is the vibe of the collection. So like here you see me working on, this is the lavender collection. So I mainly have her wearing the headband and cardigan. I neglected to add maybe the bag in the frame. And then I want like a page that will have like all the little girls having a tea party in the respective dresses. I think that'll be very cute. But here you see me work on the lavender collection. And the lavender collection, I'm kind of thinking, well, what is the vibe I see with it? I see it as a little more elegant and vintage compared to the rose collection, for example. And the rose vibe I see is very English rose, a little more upper class. We're seeing, I think of her as a little prim, kind of Rosetta from Tinkerbell. That's the vibe I get. And again, obviously so. I think the correlation is self-evident. But I see her as a little more prim. I see that she'll have a fancier tea array. She'll be in a luscious, immaculate garden of roses, maybe even a water fountain. I see kind of that's her vibe. And that's kind of, when you go to her garden, that's what it's going to look like. Whereas for the lavender, I wanted her a little more grounded. I wanted her a little more natural. She's hanging dry lavender up in her ceiling. Maybe she likes doing little tonics and things. I see her as being more literary. I see her as being homespun doesn't feel like the right word, but I see her as having a simpler cottage, maybe even, you know, a more wooden look to the scene. And just going a little more natural, a little more unkept, but cute and tidy. And I think she would be into things being curated in a very purposeful way. And so this is kind of the vibe I'm trying to get across with her, a little simpler. She's kind of in a wicker chair opposed to, you know, like a those cute, fancy white chairs is what I picture for the rose. And then for like the sunflower collection, I see it's even we're kind of keep going more and more closer to nature, more and more natural. She's gonna be a little more wild. She lets her garden grow almost unkept. It's gonna be allowed to be free. It's gonna be, we're talking Merida vibes almost. Um, we're it's going to have a lot more of that wild air to it. And so that's kind of the extent that I want the writing and storytelling to take place. And so, really kind of showing off the illustrations to give it that cozy cottage feel. Here you see me. I felt like it was hard to tell who she was until the colors were in place. So here I am just using colored pencils to give her a little more life. And so the illustrations are going to be, I'm going to need quite a few of them. And so I did want to, I'm still in basically the brainstorming phase of finalizing what each character and collection, the formatting, because I would like, for example, in this piece, initially, I kind of have her in a frame in a sense, and I wanted that empty space up in the corner to be just kind of white of the page, and then I was going to put text there. But for the sake of the illustration, I kind of got ahead of myself and did a full scene, which this is an option also. But we'll kind of see how I format that and then officially what the each characters would look like. I don't know if I mentioned earlier, I thought I was going to make her look a little older. So also to contrast against the Rose collection, who would be younger, very heart-shaped face. This kind of just came out when I was thinking of making her very, a part of it was inspired by a girl who modeled the lavender cardigan. I'll put her picture here. So it was kind of greatly inspired there, I have to say, as well as when I was thinking of her being a bit naturalistic, the braids kind of came into play because I think she would just be very simple. And then for some reason the face came out as it did. So whether or not this one sticks as a design, I do like it. I think I might just tweak it. We'll see. I'll come up with maybe some other options, but I also don't want to overdo the design on this. I do want it to be something that just comes naturally. I'll probably have some votes over on Instagram to see what people like. And so here you see me going over, I think this was the lavender baby blanket pattern. Yes. And so I was behind as usual, and so I needed to finish a few edits on it before I could send it to testers. So that's what I'm doing here, and that will be, at least for now, the last pattern in the lavender collection. What all do I have in it? I have cardigan, a dress, a headband, a bag, and I guess this blanket. So it'll have 5 patterns total unless I add something to it. And so I kind of really also need to decide if I keep adding patterns, I need that done also by spring. But by the time I move on to most other collections, I kind of leave the others behind and feel that they're closed. But this one, someone mentioned that the lavender stitch would be a beautiful baby blanket border. I was like, I need to see that in reality. So I also, again, wanted it to fit the vibe. So I wanted it a little lacy, not too simple, but simple enough. Someone mentioned that they like that I do these cottagecore designs while using simple stitches, and that is kind of that balance I try to shoot for. That isn't complicated, but it achieves a very appealing cottagecore look. So my day is winding down. I'm working on the cottage apple cardigan. I am editing videos, as you can see here. I'm exporting one. So that is going to conclude today working on the pattern book, whether it be working on just the patterns or working on brainstorming illustration ideas. Yeah, that is where I'm going to leave you guys off at. I really appreciate you joining me today, and I would love to hear your feedback, any thoughts, any ideas that I should include, or names I could use for the books, things of that sort. I really would love to hear feedback from everyone. The feedback I have received has been really great, and I would love to have that just keep coming, and I'll keep sharing the development with you and in taking that feedback and implementing it. So while I wait on my computer to turn on, I thought I would introduce you guys to my filming assistant, Manny here, who is also, of course, my model assistant when I need to take progress photos. But yeah, she's been holding the camera around her neck and goes wherever I need her to go. Say hi to Manny. Oh, and then of course, my other assistant, who tends to make a mess. What do you have to say for yourself? Yeah, you're a good girl. Oh,